Hi, Amy and dog. I see a puppy. I always love seeing pets on screen. Hi, Kim. Hi, Jen. Hi, Jessica. Let me grab. Okay. I'm not going to let the note takers in right now. I will bring them in later, but I always like to make room for all the faces first. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to give everybody another minute or less to join, and then we'll get started. See. There she is.
Sorry, I'm so like blurry. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I thought maybe that was a new thing that I didn't know about. We're supposed to be.
I'm in a hotel in Pennsylvania. I think it's just weird lighting.
Gotcha. I understand. I just got new glasses, which I love, but they reflect everything. So I don't like that part. I'm trying to figure out the lighting. Okay, well, we're a couple minutes over, so I'm going to go ahead and get started because we have plenty to talk about today. Welcome, everyone, to the Women's Podcaster Party. I'm very excited to see some familiar faces and some new faces. Yay, I love that. I think I know everyone, but just in case. Hi, I'm Julie Marty-Pearson, your host. I created this community a little over a year ago to make space for women in podcasting, guest speakers, to have a place to come and connect, collaborate, find new connections, as well as learn. This is a space for people. You don't have to be a podcaster or a guest yet. It's just a space to come and learn from each other, but also a safe space to ask the questions maybe we don't want to ask in the bigger communities. I always say that the reason I call it the Women's Podcaster Party is as women, we podcast about things differently than men do. We talk about different topics. We talk about things differently. And so this is really just a space for us all to connect and grow and learn together. And I'm very excited to have a panel of podcasters here today to teach you a little bit about their stories, but then answer all your burning podcasting questions. Because the great thing about podcasting is there's no one way to do it. You get to do it however you want. And with that comes a lot of decisions to make when podcasting. So hopefully we'll answer all of your burning questions. But before we jump into that, I'm going to go around the Zoom room and I'm going to let everybody do a quick intro.
You have to let
Um,
me.
I,
Okay.
I
Well,
will give you a timer because I know as women who podcast, can talk forever. I don't know about you. I often have a hard time cutting off episodes when I'm recording with fellow podcasters. So I am going to start with my panelists for first. I'll let them do a short intro now, then you'll learn more about them later. So I'm going to go to Amy Castro first.
hello. My name, like she said, is Amy Castro. I am a professional speaker and trainer by trade. I help organizations develop their leaders and build teams, focusing on communication. But my podcasting has nothing to do with that. Well, that's not true. I do use the communication skills, but I also, in my spare time, run an animal rescue, and I live on a 7-acre animal rescue ranch. And my podcast is a part of the education arm of the rescue. Rather than having one-on-one conversations with people, the goal was to have a podcast and help educate pet parents to keep pets in good homes and keep them out of mine.
Yes, that's what it's all about. So you can imagine how Amy and I connected since I also have a pet podcast. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Okay, Corey, you want to go next?
Hey guys, I'm Dr. Corey Winn. I'm a physical therapist, a consultant, and a philanthropist. I'm a founder of a nonprofit. I have two large dogs, so Julie and I connected over that. My podcast, though, is specifically for empowering women and leaders. So it's called Empower Her Radio with Dr. Corey Winn. And the consulting that I do is like executive leadership coaching for women to really step into their truest selves and stop asking, why me? Or I don't know, maybe I can't do that. So it's guests from all walks of life, moms, entrepreneurs, health professionals that have had some sort of pivot typically. So, no longer willing to stay in the lane that maybe we thought we had to stay in for a long time. So, and Julie
I
was
love
a
that.
guest on my podcast. So that's how we met.
Yay, I love that. I think that's why a lot of us women love podcasting because it is about empowerment. It is about not staying in a box or in a lane and getting to be your full self authentically and all the things. So I love that, Corey. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to start going around the Zoom room. Feel free to drop your links in the chat, your podcast, your website, whatever you would like to share with the crowd. So please feel free to do that at any time. Okay, I'm just going to go around. So I'm going to go to the other Amy. If you would like to do your intro. And just a reminder who you are, what you do, if you have a pod, are you a guest, just brief so we all get a sense of who's in the room.
Sure. So my name is Amy Bolduck. I host a podcast called Grounded in Maine. It is about sustainability. So empowering people to take up their role in climate change as opposed to feeling overwhelmed by the situation and the state of the world. So that is me.
Yay. Amy's podcast is great. I learn a lot by listening to it. And they talk, just so you know, sustainability about everything from fashion to farming and everything in between. It's a great podcast if you want to learn in that world. Okay. And we also, Amy and I met because she was a early guest on my pet podcast. As you can see, there is a dog behind her. So a lot of my friends I find through bonding over pets. Okay, next up in the Zoom room is Kim.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kim McLaughlin. I am in sunny California, hot California, that part of the world. Let me see. I am a licensed psychotherapist in the state of California, so I focus on a lot of things having to do with mental health and wellness. I also do coaching around emotional eating, so I have a whole program to help people end emotional eating. My podcast is called Feed Your Soul with Kim. And we talk about all things having to do with mental health, mental wellness, and emotional health, really helping people feel better in their lives. And that's it. Thanks.
Hey, thank you, Kim. So happy to have you here. I too am in sunny California. It's supposed to be 102 here today. So if you notice my face get red, it's not personal, it's just the weather. We're at that point, right, ladies? Yes, California people get it. Okay, next in the Zoom, we got Jen.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Coach Jen B. I help women entrepreneurs to get the heck out of their own darn way and create the life and business that they are worthy of. Julie and I met through Kettering Around Those community. I am also a dot sister, if you're familiar with that. I used to have a podcast back in the day when I had a business partner, and honestly, I have a complicated relationship with it, but I've been a guest on numerous. And mostly it's about turning my mess into my message, both in life and in business.
Yes, I love that. Mess into message. I'm going to have to write that down somewhere. You know, I am all about storytelling, however you do it. We all have to tell our story to connect with people in our business. Maybe it's podcasting, maybe it's guesting, maybe it's speaking, whatever it is, it's all important. And no matter what, we need more women's voices out in the world, right? Thank you, Jen. Okay, next. Okay, I know I'm gonna mess this up. I don't want to say, is it hala or hale? I apologize. I'm
No
awful
worries.
with that. So
No worries. Good day. It's Hale, pronounced like hallelujah. So it's Hale.
hala, that
Thank you.
helps. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm in Los Angeles, California, but you guys can hop on the jet and we can go wherever you want. How about that? Let's get out of the heat right now. Yes, it's really hot and we don't have central air here. So yeah, I have the fan, but it's not helping right now. Anyway, anyways, I'm not a podcaster, but I've been on a lot of them. I love to get interviewed. And what I do is a health span cell resonance quantum coach. What that means is, are you getting up with that zest, that energy? Are you listening to your body? What is your body telling you? And in these seconds, I can't say much, but basically, I was bedridden that I had to be carried to the restroom, but I am not that person, and I got out of bed in 3 months and never been on any meds. That's it.
Hey, I as someone who's dealt with health issues most of her life, that is an important accomplishment, right? Sometimes it's mind over body, but we all got to get there one way or another. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, next up we've got Kat. Please introduce yourself.
Absolutely. I am not a podcaster. Julie hasn't converted me yet. I am a podcast guest. She tries hard. Because, well, I've been in her community we've been in communities together. And I am a coach for women. I focus on mindset and empowerment, and I work with a lot of career women. And yeah, I'm always here to learn and have fun and meet all the podcasters because I need to start guesting more. I've been a little slack in that. So it's time to get back on the podcast guesting train.
Yes, I love it. And just so you know, especially those of you who are new, you do not have to be a podcaster to join this community. It is open to everyone, podcaster, guest speaker, and I like to say podcast curious. So I'm always happy to have our guests and speakers here as well. Okay, next up in the Zoom room is Terry. Would you like to do a short intro?
Oh, I'd be happy to. I also live here in sunny California, but I love the heat, so I'm one of those people that I live in the right place. And my daughter and I did a podcast for 10 years, but we're kind of splitting now. We're going our separate ways amicably because she has a new job. And so I'm looking to maybe further my leadership and coaching with I work mainly with county offices and chambers of commerce and small businesses in doing leadership and communication, team building. So I'm looking to maybe go that way. So maybe that would be a great way to start a new podcast. So that's why I'm here. I appreciate Julie so much. And many of you, I've known you. Jen's chasing me to get out of my way. And Kat and I have been friends for a long time. So I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you, Terry. And of course, she doesn't mention she's also the mayor of Tulare, where she lives, a couple hours north of me in Central California. I'm so happy to have you here, and I love that you're thinking about a new podcast journey. Okay, next up in the Zoom room, I've got Susie. Oh,
Hi,
there she is.
everyone. Excuse me. I'm trying to eat and do all the things, and it's not working. I'm very happy to be here. I'm a midlife transition coach, and I'm in Toronto, not sunny right now, but often sunny. I'm from Philadelphia. I help professional women over 50 give themselves permission to be happy so they can regret-proof their lives before they run out of time. Because that's really what we're talking about here. We're very sensitive about aging as we age. So I have two podcasts. I've got one that's coming up on its 8th anniversary in a couple of weeks called Women in the Middle, Loving Life After 50 with over 400 episodes. I can't believe it. Can't believe I'm 61 and I have a podcast that's been going on this long. And I launched a second podcast last year called Women in the Middle Entrepreneurs, the reality of running a business when you're over 50, like what's really going on and the kind of midlife things that pop up and get in your way. And it's a lot of fun. And there are over 100 episodes on that one as well. I'm working this year on meeting and collaborating more, and I'm happy to be here.
Yay, Susie. And I do want to take a moment to appreciate that. 8 years in podcasting is huge. People have no idea how easy it is to pod fade, as we call it. So big round for that, because that
Thank
is
you.
commitment right
I
there.
haven't missed one. If only I was lifting weights with the same discipline.
Right. Okay, next up in the Zoom room is Sandy. Please introduce yourself.
Am I off mute? Okay.
You're off mute. You're
Everyone,
good.
I'm Sandy Okamoto. I'm your personal style and wardrobe consultant. I'm not a podcaster, but I had the privilege of being a first-time podcast guest on Susie Rosenstein's podcast. So that was exciting. So I'd like to do that more.
Yay, I love to hear that, Sandy.
Oh.
You know, now that you said it, I'm going to keep pushing you to do it.
And it's recorded, right?
Yes.
You got me there.
Sandy is an amazing stylist. She hosts monthly workshops. Definitely check it out. She does great things around packing that will help all of us women who are overpackers. So thank you, Sandy. Very happy to have you here. Okay, last but not least, Jessica, are you able to unmute and say hi?
I am. Hi, my name is Jessica Hammock. I'm from the Dallas, Texas area. We're going to give you California girls a run for your money because it's 96 and it feels like 106 right now.
Wow.
But I am a director of behavioral and mental health for a large charter school system in the state of Texas, helping 100 campuses and 25,000 kids. And I'm a licensed trauma therapist and trauma recovery coach. So I primarily work with individuals in that trauma vein, I guess you could say. I do have a podcast on the idea of spirit, soul, body healing and what that looks like, especially from a faith standpoint and individuals walking that out. But I love being a podcast guest and have been on quite a few podcasts, anything ranging from trauma healing and healing in the spirit, soul, and body to educational podcasts related to parent and family communication, personality styles, conflict management, and all things related to mental health and conflict in families specifically.
Great. Thank you so much for being here. And I met Jessica through Polka Dot Powerhouse, which I think somebody else mentioned. So I'm just throwing that out there. Many of us are already members, but if that's something you've never heard of and want to learn more, I will drop the link in the chat later for you to check that out. You're welcome to come attend a meeting and learn more about it. Many dots in the room can tell you more about that as well. Well, I just want to say again, thank you all for being here. I love seeing this community growing. We have new faces, we have returning faces, and that makes me so happy. I've been doing this for a little over a year, and there were moments I said, why am I doing this? Why am I doing all this work? Well, there's a reason, and we're still here. So I'm very happy to jump into our panel of podcasters. I'm going to do a little bit of how I met each of them. Then they're each going to tell you a little bit about their journey in podcasting, why they started, and how their podcast works. And then we're going to open it up to questions. So this is really a space to learn, to share, and to grow. And so no question is too little or too silly or whatever we tell ourselves in our heads. And you're welcome to drop questions in the chat or, raise your virtual hand and we can unmute you. Okay, so first up, Amy Castro. Her and I actually met via Podfest, and it wasn't in person. We met before Podfest in 2024. I had gone into the app and created a group for pet podcasters. Turns out Amy and I were the only ones of the bunch of Podfest that were pet podcasters, at least at that time. So we met virtually, we met in person, we guested on each other's pet podcasts and have stayed in touch. And so I am so happy to have her here to talk about how her podcast started, but also how it has evolved. And then we will then go to Corey, who she mentioned earlier. Her and I met via Podmatch, I believe. And I was a guest on her show. And of course, we hit it off both as pet parents, but also as women trying to empower more women to share their story and push themselves out there in the business world. So, Amy, would you like to tell everybody a little bit about your journey in podcasting, why you started, and what your podcast is like?
Sure. So I started, and for those of you who were here when I did my introduction, I basically started as an offshoot of my animal rescue. One of our 5 pillars of our mission is education, because you can spay and neuter till the cows come home, and or try to, and it's the education piece that really is the key to animal welfare, in my humble opinion. And I found myself having, and I still do, have lots of one-on-one conversations with people that are calling me for help, like as if I'm a veterinarian, or calling me to surrender their pets. And rather than just saying, sure, I'll take your pet, my question is always why? Why do you need to surrender your pet? And then I try to troubleshoot and problem solve and give them resources. And I thought, well, if I can do that through X number of phone calls every week, maybe I should start a podcast. The other thing I will say is, the podcast was not simply started out of the goodness of my heart because I wanted to start a podcast and do that. That was a main driver of it. But as a professional speaker and trainer, as much as I, for the most part, enjoy my speaking and training gigs, I would much rather work with people and pets. And so I thought, well, doing a podcast would be a great way to take my professional speaking experience, my background as a journalist and an interviewer, and put those things together and then do some good for animals and humans as well. So that was something that fed into it. And as the podcast has progressed, and I'm going through, actually, and I don't even think Julie really knows this, I'm going to rebrand again. So I started the podcast in 2023. The rescue was started in 2017, but I started the podcast, and the rescue is called Starlight Outreach and Rescue. So I thought, okay, we'll call it Starlight Pet Talk. And we, kind of stole part of the logo and melded it in because I wanted it very much affiliated as the podcast of the rescue. And then I guess it was last year, whenever you can Google, when Hurricane Beryl came barreling through Houston, even though it was a minor hurricane in this grand scheme of hurricanes, I found myself sitting on the edge of my swimming pool in a hurricane, crying about the state of my life. And I just basically decided right then and there, I was done. I was done with 7 acres. I was done with having 60 animals to care for and try to keep them from blowing away in a hurricane. I've lived this lifestyle since 2010, and I just thought, I can't do this anymore. This is just too much. And so I've made that decision, and that decision is in progress as far as the rescue goes. But that prompted me to say, okay, I still want to do the podcast. So how can I continue the podcast? I can't keep calling it Starlight Pet Talk if there is no Starlight Outreach and Rescue. And many times people, and this is a good hint for you naming your podcast, as much as the name made sense to people who knew the rescue first, the average person coming across it out in the world would say, is this a pet astrology thing? Is this about communicating with your dead pets? Pet Talk. No, that's not what it is. So it was not exactly a wise choice of the name. So in my frustration and wanting to just bust away from the rescue, I thought, I'm going to go all Amy Castro. I'm going rogue. I'm just going to go rogue and go 180 degrees opposite. And so in February of this year, I rebranded the podcast Muddy Paws and Hairballs and thought, okay, I'm going to get down. I'm going to get dirty. I'm going to say it like I would normally say it, no holds barred. And as I started doing the podcast, I realized I said I was going to do things differently, but I was still the same me. I was still taking the same format, the same approach. I mean, there's always a lot of sass and humor rolled into it, but other than changing the name and changing the logo, I hadn't really changed anything. And so I'm changing it again. And so right now but this time, rather than it being more of a superficial change and a change in here, I've really gone back and looked at it from the standpoint, if I was starting over, what can I do to do this smart and to make more of it? Because ultimately my goal is to monetize this podcast and make a living off of it, or at least a partial living off of it. So I am in the process of, I put the podcast on hold, which was a terrifying thing to do. And I have not released an episode since April. And I had released weekly from 2023 when I started it. And I've got 117 episodes on the books. And I just stopped cold turkey because why am I going to continue to pump out content when it's not going the way I want it to go? So I stopped. I'm revisiting the whole thing, starting all over again. I'm going to relaunch August 10th. So that is my basic journey.
Amy, thank you for that, because that story is so important, because I have so many women stuck in the beginning. Well, I don't know what to call it. Is this the right wording? Is this No, just start, and tomorrow you can change it. Next week you can change it. Next month that's what podcasting is so amazing. You can shift, you can change at any moment. So I love that process you talked. But it's scary to start. It's also scary to change or shift or pause. I started a second podcast last year. After 6 episodes, I paused it. I'm like, this isn't right. I'm hearing different things of what people need. I need to stop and start when I'm ready, and I still haven't. But I'm sitting on a ton of content ready to put out. So I thank you so much for saying that, because it really helps people realize it's okay to change your mind or pause or restart or rebrand, but you still have that other content out there. People are listening, and then people are still learning. Yes. Okay, next up, Corey, will you please share us a little of your journey in podcasting, and then we'll get into Q&A.
Oh my gosh, Amy, I love just for once that you talked about pivoting and not following your heart anymore, because that's really the focus of everything that I do. I've been a physical therapist for 15 years. 5 years ago, I jumped into entrepreneurial world as a health coach, did that for a while. and really felt stuck. I wasn't loving it anymore. My clients weren't maintaining their gains. And I finally sat back one day and was like, what is happening? Why are all of my clients doing so well and then backsliding so significantly? And it became very clear that it was an issue of worthiness. And especially with the moms that I work with, I have going to be 10-year-old next week. And the self-sabotage came from a place of not being worthy to take care of myself. Everyone else needs things before me. I'm not important enough to be healthy. And at the same time, I invested in my own journey and personal development with significant personal development coaching. So I've actually had a podcast for a year. Let's see. So that was December of 2023. In April of 24, I totally pivoted and launched my own high performance women's coaching and consulting practice to really get to that space of, okay, what do you want in your life? How can we get there? And what's stopping you right now? As a mom, as a wife, and a lot of people who I work with are in healthcare. You know, you've burnt out in this space, but why? What's not, you know, what do you not have on fire anymore? And then I just decided, well, I'm going to do a podcast, talk about baptized by fire. I said June 1st, I'm going to start it. I had no idea what I was going to talk about, but I knew it was needed. So Empower Her Radio with Dr. Corey Winn came about. And luckily, with the coaching and consulting that I'd been doing, as well as the personal development work and the community that I was in, I had a lot of guests and I had a lot of content that I could talk about. And then, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago, I noticed a colleague of mine. I was like, you're on a lot of podcasts. Like, how are you finding these people? How are you? And she said, Corey, I'm on Podmatch. And it took off after that because I have met, obviously, Julie, but so many people who I would never have crossed paths with before. And as a consultant, my personal coach said, you know, you can go on to Listen Notes and search podcasts and see, you know, how many episodes and whatnot. And that seemed so incredibly daunting to me to sift through the thousands and thousands of podcasts and try and figure out what would be appropriate for me to be a guest or ask. And I just kept putting it off. And when I found Podmatch, it was just like, thank you so much for this, because I didn't have the time. And then, so my podcast focuses on everything empowering women. So many of us, me in particular, went to school for a long time. So, you know, and growing up, my dad was the first one who had gone to college. So it was like, you're going to get a job, you're going to get health insurance, you're going to have a 401k, and you're going to stay there and you're going to be safe in this place. And I felt like I could have gouged my eyeballs out because I thought, I don't want this. I love physical therapy and I don't want this 9 to 5. So it also became a space of bringing women in with various expertise from all walks of life to say, how have you used your expertise? What have you done to be different? And especially as a mom, whether you're a fur mom or a human mom, you may not want that 9 to 5. You may not need it, or it may not fit in your life. So my goal has been giving women permission to pivot, showing them how to do it, and bringing other women from every walk of life that I can think of to say, see if they did it, you can. And then in December of last year, my whole career, for the most part in physical therapy, has been focused on patients with neurological diseases. And my uncle had a spinal cord injury. So I grew up around him, around wheelchairs. Long story short, I said, I am going to start a nonprofit. Again, baptized by fire. I don't have any experience in nonprofit work. And my uncle passed away a week later. So that launched me into, okay, I'm doing this, I have to do it. And that piece of it is helping patients get equipment, home modifications and whatnot above and beyond what insurance might pay for. So that piece, I don't really talk a whole lot on my own personal podcast, but it's something as a guest that I do mention just as, you know, one of the things that I do.
so many of us women have our hats in, like, over here I do that, and over here I do this, right? And what I
It
find when
makes
I'm a
it so
guest,
much more fun.
yes, and when I'm a guest, I may come on to talk about pets, or I may come on to talk about podcasting, but somehow I end up on the other side too. So that's why I love being a guest as well. And Corey, I think you and I bonded in a lot of ways because so much of what you said is me. I have 2 masters and a doctorate. I love being a student. I have a mountain of student debt that is up in question right now. Who knows what's going to happen with that? But I also spent a long time in that career, but I had to realize it was okay for me to be like, that was that. Now I'm onto a new chapter. I'm using a lot of the same skills from that world, but in a very different way. And a lot of us as women have a hard time. Like, we have to have the career, we have to have all the things, whether we're human moms or fur moms, we have a family relying on us. And so I think podcasting has allowed so many of us to branch out into new areas we never would have without it. And that's why I love podcasting. Okay, so you guys have learned a little more about our panelists. I'm going to open up now. You can drop it in the chat, or you can raise your virtual hand. I would love for you to ask questions, comments, whatever it may be. You can ask about the way they podcast. Are they they're both solo hosts, so they do not have co-hosts or fellow hosts with them. They both do interviews and solo episodes, just to give you some of that. But any other questions, comments you would like to start with, please feel free to raise a hand virtually or in the chat. And I know we are women who like to talk, so I will start calling on people if I have to go into teacher mode.
Well, and I don't know about Amy, but I will be completely honest. There's no question that would embarrass me or I wouldn't answer unless I don't know the answer. So don't hold back.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, Jen, you go first, and then we'll move to Susie.
All I was going to say is so much of Corey's story, I literally was like, I think she's talking about me the entire time, between the word pivot recently for me and what success looks like. And I am a kiddo of Cuban immigrant who was told, you get the degree, you stay in the seat, you retire. That's the kind of deal. So I don't know, just love your vibe. That's what I wanted to say out there. I think for, I have an abundant plate. I hate the word busy, even though people are like, you're a busy bee. No, I'm abundant. When life gets lifey, why still podcast? I know for you, Corey, it sounded like there's definitely something bigger for you, Amy, as well. And I'm curious about like the business interaction for you. Is it bringing visibility to your business and your transformation with clients?
Great questions. I'll let Amy go first, and then Corey can answer too.
I think for me, and it's interesting you say that, because ever since I started the rescue, I went out to my, if you ever go out to your Social Security, look at your statement and see what you might get. My income since I started animal rescue has progressively gone down, down, down. I mean, it ebbs and flows, the speaking income. And a huge piece of it is, as much as when I'm in the moment and I'm doing it and I'm with an audience that I like and I'm talking about a topic I like, I'm great. But overall, like literally, if I could make the same money pooper scooping your yard, I would do that instead. And so the podcast has given, because I am shooting to make the podcast something that I will monetize through sponsorships. But I also see the potential. The sponsorship has garnered me business connections. Just as an example, I had a veterinarian on my podcast who does training for her. She has a very specific clientele, and you'd have to really be an elite pet parent. And she does all these training webinars and things like that. And then we started talking about, well, communicating with your veterinarian. Maybe we could, work together on a program about, I bring my communication skills, you bring the veterinarian skills, and we do a co-webinar. So I've met people that I can take the aspects that I like of my business and then put it in the pet space, which, makes me a hell of a lot happier than going to speak. I'm outside of Houston, so it's NASA, which is has been a client of mine over the years, and a lot of chemical plants. Well, I'm sorry, I don't get jazzed up to go out to some chemical plant that's going to explode any minute, go into a building that is on a bunch of springs with no windows because it's going to blow up any minute, and, do a communication training with a bunch of guys that are sweaty and just came off a, 20-hour shift. It's just not my ideal work environment. So it has opened up opportunities to do other things. And it's also, there's been a lot of spin-off in my head about things that I can do, like cherry picking the best of and the favorite things I like to do, and how can I apply that to pet parents. I already do a lot of speaking to pet businesses, and so spinning off in that way, because there are pet business people that listen to my podcast. So I think the key to some of that, is if you're looking to, rather than just doing something because you want to talk about that topic or it's a personal passion of yours, if you want to monetize it in some way or create it as a source of business, to package it smartly in the way that you put it out there and really target specific audiences. That's why, like Terry, when I had made the comment about you should do a podcast for mayors, I very much think that there's probably not a podcast for mayors. And it's like, yes, that would be beneficial, but how would she if she wanted to turn that into a business thing? What are the odds that that's going to be? I mean, you have to look at that if the goal was to monetize that.
I think that's so important, because one of the things I always tell everyone before they get into why they want to have a podcast or what they're doing, blah, blah, blah. It's like, what's your why? What do you want out of it? You have to start there. Otherwise, you're putting effort in and no real reason or direction. And, my pet podcast is kind of a side passion, but it also is my evidence that I know how to podcast and continue to podcast and grow, right? So there are pieces we have to package. What about you, Corey?
So I think there were also kind of two parts of Jen's question, and it sounded like kind of boundaries too, of because you're in demand, because your schedule is full. I took a break from recording all summer because my daughter's home for summer vacation, but I was able to make sure I had enough interviews to already have content for the whole summer. But as far as monetizing goes, there's a couple of different things. I don't know kind of what your relationship with Podmatch is, Julie, but I'm an affiliate with Podmatch. So I don't get paid a whole lot of commission, but it covers my Podmatch dues every month at least, and more than that. So that's the one part of it. And then I'm an affiliate with Nadine Hanafi's Digital Brand Kit, who creates templates for branding that you can just kind of plug and play. And she is incredible. And it took my personal branding from clearly DIY, but doing my best, to very professional. And her goal is for that entrepreneur to step out and pivot and take that piece of it out of it. And then furthermore, I'm also an affiliate with Jessica Papineau, who is a stylist as well, and consultant. So that's how I've started to monetize, and it hasn't taken off crazily yet. So I don't have a great answer for you, because that part of it's new. I just started those ads and monetizing that piece of it in the last month. So I can always get back to you. I do think that the visibility has improved significantly with Podmatch. I mean, my downloads tripled or quadrupled in the last 4 months. So I think it's coming. It just hasn't yet.
Right. No, I think that's a great point, because a lot of times I talk about Podmatch for guests, especially, but Podmatch is also a visibility tool, because when you sign up, whether it's as a host, a guest, or both, which is what I am, you have this profile that gives all the information and gives you a lot of data you can't find by searching a podcast on a player. And I think it was Corey mentioned Listen Notes. That is also, it's a website I highly recommend. It is your directory of podcasts, and you can search by podcast name, podcaster name, by topic, by category, by keywords. So I always suggest that for people too. And I will just say this really briefly, and then we'll jump to Susie's question, is myself, my podcast about pets, I have 2 affiliate companies I work with. One is really great. It's a CBD company, but it has CBD for humans and for pets. So I had someone come on, talk about how she started using it, how she uses it with her pets. And then I have host read ads in that. And the other day I went in, I had $85. Great. That pays for my host for the month for that podcast. So there are little ways to help cover the everyday expenses. But then my other podcast that's related to my business, when I relaunch, each episode is going to be directly feeding into my membership or my workshop or this community. So that's what's great about podcasting is you can choose it, but we also kind of have to be researchers and see what's working and what's not. Okay, Susie, you have a question?
Yeah, so we all know guests want to be on our shows because of what they'll get from the shows, right? It's an opportunity, especially if you have a popular podcast and they're aware of it. And I'm just wondering how well you're doing at choosing guests based on not just what your audience will gain from their expertise or their story, but also how you will gain.
Mm,
So in other
I
words,
love
are
that
they going to promote
question.
the episodes?
Yep.
Maybe whatever, just you answer that question. So how strategic are you being by the way you choose your guests? Because
I
I'm
love that.
inundated, so I would love to hear.
Yeah.
I'll let Corey go first, and then we'll go to Amy.
So a couple of different things. I use AI all the time and had AI help me based on my ideal client, my professional bio, all these different criteria and intake form as to who are you? Why do you want to be on my show? And with Podmatch too, when you get a message, it's really easy to filter out and see, I've had a couple of people just give me their name. I want to be on your show. I'm sorry, why? And I want to know who you are, that you have some clue as to the audience that I am trying to address and resonate with, how you can bring to that space. And then secondly, one of the questions on the intake is, are you going to be willing to share this on your own social media? And if they say no, for whatever reason, then I'm not going to have them as a guest, because this is part of my job. This is part of my reach to the world. And for me, it goes two ways. So if you're willing to promote, awesome, then we'll move on. If not, I'm sorry.
Love that. Go ahead, Amy.
Yeah, so I've kind of changed my tune on that from when I started. When I started, I was all of these women coaches are gonna cringe, but when I started, I had a lot of that imposter syndrome thing going and basically saying, who am I to invite yada yada boom boom to come and be on my show? So I wasn't going after like heavy hitters necessarily, but I was basically stalking their social if they had good social media following. So I kind of had this mix of people in the beginning that were like, had these big social media followings, and then, a mix of people that I personally found interesting, and then a couple of people that found me, and that will happen more as your show gets a little bit bigger and a little more out there, as people will start reaching out to you. And so what I have discovered through 100 and something episodes, most of those being interviewed, is that you can have those statements asking people to put social, and you probably could get more hardcore and create a contract and that you will put this many social posts or whatever, but they're never going to do as much as you want them to do. They're never going to promote it as much. They're never going to push it as much. I end up having to remind people like, hey, I haven't seen anything. And I'll tell you, the one thing that created traction to the point that when their push hit, it was like I went to Buzzsprout and just started seeing downloads, and it was the dumbest thing. It's a holistic veterinarian in Canada who obviously has a huge following. And he said, I'll put it out in my newsletter. Well, he literally put in his newsletter, I kid you not, and it's a plain text email, I was recently on a podcast talking about whatever. And then he put a link. And it was like, the episode is still the biggest downloaded episode that I've had. I mean, it just blew up after he did that. And it's just because for whatever reason, like people who buy into him buy into anything he's going to do. And they did. But I've had, pseudo celebrity dog groomers and this and that. And they either don't do it or they'll do it once and feel like they've foot the bill. So
Right.
I have kind of moved to being more about the quality of like, who do I want to interview? Who do my audience, who do they need to hear from? And yes, if I can get some social push, that's great. I mean, I even went at one point, I was to the point where I was asking them, like, what is your following here, there, like in my intake form. And then I started thinking, well, that's pretty brassy to do
Right.
that. And who, it's like, because
It could turn people
mine
off
wasn't so
too to
great at the
even
time,
fill
so
it
who am
out.
I to say?
Right.
And so, I kind of just go for the people that I think are gonna be the best spokesperson on the topic that I've already determined that I want. And I have gotten a lot of, people that are reaching out to me, that, that have been good leads and have done a decent job of promoting it.
And I will say one thing for me, and I'm sure a few of you that have been in podcasting a while, what's nice is once you've been doing it a while, you have your pick. I get emails, DMs every day for both of my podcasts, and I get to choose who I want to meet or who I want to invite. And I also get to bring back guests that were amazing to come back and share the next, story or share how things are going now. And I can do that on both of my podcasts. And that makes a real difference. I did see Sandy say, how do podcasters get paid? I think that is the question I get the most. How do you make money? Well, the answer is there's probably 100 different ways, but most podcasters are either one tying directly into their business. So I'm talking about something you need support. I'm helping answer a question for you. You're going to come join a workshop or a program, or you're reading ads for a company or for somebody you're collaborating with or a referral partner. There's so many different ways in terms of affiliate marketing, in terms of, like, I have shared my affiliate link for Podmatch and for other things. So it really is, you have to have it 10 different ways to really make income, but it also takes time to build up the following in order to do that. Susie, another question?
I was just going to add one thing. It's when you really think about it, like in my podcast on the first one, I only do 50% interviews. So that means there's only 25-ish spots for the whole year. So when you think about it that way, and that we do have to make money, I'm really thinking now after 8 years, it's time to really be a little bit more strategic about it.
And be more selective. And I
Yeah,
think
that's
that
what I
as
mean.
women, we have a hard time saying no to people.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys, I'm a people pleaser. And so I'll have people reach out and be like, wow, that's great, but it's not what I'm looking for, or it's not what I need right now. Or I've actually created a wait list. So at least I have somewhere to go back to and say, hey, I need something else. Let's see what they want to talk about. So there's ways to be strategic and to make it work better for you. But it is also like kind of trial and error. I think I've been burned now by some bad guests. And especially with my pet podcast, I get tons of emails from authors, from publishers. My author has a new book coming out and they talk about pets. I go, yeah, but how do they talk about pets? Do they just mention their dog in the story, or is it actually about something? I met somebody who did it through Podmatch, has an autobiography about his life working in elections in Chicago in 2020. And we connected because he put cats on his profile. So him and I met, and he goes, well, yeah, one chapter is all about my cats and how they saved my life because I was thinking about committing suicide. I'm like, hi, yes, let's talk about that. That's the pet thing. That's the connection. That's the thing I want people to learn about. So sometimes it is meeting the people and seeing if they're a good fit. And sometimes you never know where the conversation's going to go either. Any other comments from Corey or Amy? Yeah, go ahead, Amy.
I was going to say one thing too, that one of the things that I have learned as I've gone through this process is in the beginning, especially if it was somebody that was higher viz or had a book to promote or whatever, oftentimes with especially, let's use the book as an example. So they've got a book they're trying to promote. I kind of let them guide the agenda, or maybe I fed into their agenda instead of really looking at what does my audience need to know from this person, and that's something that that's one of the reasons where I'm rebranding the show and really taking a step back to say, because if the top veterinarian in the country comes on my show and says the same crap about his book that he's got coming out that he said on every other pet podcast, he was on Julie's show, he's on this person's show, then there's no reason for anybody to listen to my show. And then there's no reason for him to promote that because I'm already promoting my book. So why do I need to promote a podcast about me talking about my book? So I've learned that lesson, and I'm really going to be making some major tweaks and going in with this. I've always gone in with a plan and an agenda. I mean, I'm an interviewer by training, but You know, it's just,
Right.
I'm not going to gear the agenda so much to them. I'm going to gear it more towards what I want to pull out from them.
Right.
Kind of like
Yeah, and
tea.
I think it is important just to be selective. I mean, this is our platform. We're paying for it. We're putting in the time and the effort, and we never know, even if they sign all the things, if they're gonna promote it. I've had both ways. I've had people who I thought this is going to be huge. She is the executive director of the international, you know, whatever. And then it's like, it's just like all the other ones, right? A lot of times it's the authenticity, and you don't always find that when it's a big person, a big name, or a big company. Okay, now before we take any more questions, I know we only have a few minutes left. I want to grab a photo. A couple people have left. I apologize, but I'm going to give you guys a countdown. If you want your smile on screen, I'm going to take a photo so that I can post it and everybody can tag each other from social. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Got it. Thank you very much.
I just wanted to
Okay,
add one
Corey.
thing.
Yep, go ahead.
I know for people who have really popular podcasts, you have to pay to be a guest. So I think that that's something to look at down the road. And some of that so my coach is Elise Archer, and she was talking about how, you know, as your show gets really popular, and like Susie, you were saying that you are inundated with people, like the people who really want to be on your show are going to pay for it. So
Right.
I don't think personally I'm there yet, but that's something to think about down the road, that, you know, and I wouldn't even know where to begin as far as what the price would be.
Yeah.
So maybe ask around, but I think that that's something that I'll look at in the future as this continues to grow.
And I do want to say that that is a power you hold as you grow. Even though I will be very honest with you, my pet podcast is small. I have not been consistent like Amy. I've taken several month breaks. I've kind of come back and forth, and it only has, I think, total downloads is still only 5,000 something. That is considered a small podcast. But if you look it up on Listen Notes, it is a top 5% podcast. And that is what matters to me. I look at who's listening. I've been on top charts for pets and family in 25 different countries, Pakistan, India, all these places. I'm like, hey, what I'm talking about is getting to people who need to hear it. And maybe if they adopt a dog instead of buy, if they foster, if they volunteer, that makes it worth it for me. And if I can find little ways to make money to pay for it, that's even better. Obviously, my purpose with my other one is very different. So sometimes it depends on your why you're doing it and what you want out of it. And then as you grow, you get to choose. I personally have never paid to be a guest, but that doesn't mean I wouldn't. If people have a top 2%, 1%, 0.5%, they have the right, because they are consistent and getting enough downloads, they can make money on it. But I also suggest episode swaps. That's a great way to benefit both people. Sometimes I interview people, we ended up talking about pets, so I put them on both my podcasts. You know, there's ways to make it work than what you think is the traditional way. But I highly recommend Podmatch, because I have found everybody I've been matched with, both as a guest and a host, have been great. They promote, they are communicative, they are good interviewers, they are good interviewees. So, and it is a low price point. I think as a host, it's like $6 or $8 or something, very inexpensive. As a guest, I believe it's 30 or 35, which is not expensive. You can actually get new matches every day on Podmatch. So that is a pretty low price point for what you get out of it. Okay,
Well,
I know we only
and
have a few minutes left, and I want to appreciate everyone's time. So I did drop in the chat the link and upcoming dates for the other podcaster parties, as well as a new thing we started this month is called the Deep Dive Workshop. And in July, we have Alex, the founder of Podmatch, coming for an hour-long workshop to talk about strategic guesting, both as a guest and a host. So check that out. And even if you can't make it, if you're on vacation, I know it's July, sign up and you'll get the recording. So I appreciate all of you. If you have to leave, please do so. We're going to hang out and keep answering questions. Okay, go ahead, Corey. You were going to say something?
I was just going to say the other thing about Podmatch is you're rated both ways. So your guest can rate you and you rate your guest. So you can also look very quickly and go, maybe this is another reason why maybe I shouldn't have this person on my show.
Right.
That was all I was going to say.
I love it because the profiles on Podmatch tell you who listens to the podcast, who are they making it for, who general, they talk about the flow. Is it live? Is it recorded? Is it audio? Is it video? It gives you so much more info than just searching and finding someone on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. So I really like it. They've created those profiles and they've evolved over time, and their software works because of how they've created it. And the other thing I will say about Podmatch is they are very accessible. Alex is very accessible. Him and his wife run it, as well as several other people on their team. He was open to me saying, "Hey, Alex, want to do this? Sure, let's do it." He's very communicative, very community oriented. And they also every couple months do a like half day or all day long conference style. It's actually related to his podcast, but they're recorded interviews, but they have live Q&A, and it's about anything. There's a track for guest and a track for host. So you don't have to pay anything extra for that. That's automatically there for you. So it's also a place to learn, and they have great videos of how to set up your profile and all the things. Okay. We have a couple minutes left. Any more questions, comments anyone has? Feel free to unmute and ask or drop it in the chat. And as people are mulling over it, I see the gears turning for some of you. Any questions, feel free to unmute. But Amy or Corey, is there anything you thought of maybe you want to share? Things you've learned, things you wish you knew sooner in your journey in podcasting? Feel free to share that as well.
Well, one of the questions I was going to ask, I mentioned earlier that I use AI for everything. And so I don't know if it would be helpful to do like a masterclass or something to just see how I use AI to help with my social media assets, my episodes, because in the end, I know that I still save time, but the professionalism and what I have been able to create and describe by putting it all through AI took me hours and hours before. And since I'm still building, I don't have I'm not at the level yet where I can afford to have an assistant. So I'm still doing it all the back end, everything. And I know that I'm sure a lot of you are doing the same thing. And AI was game changer for that. So I just wanted to throw that out there if that might be helpful.
What AI do you use in your podcasting workflow? Is it just
ChatGPT?
Okay. So we actually had a workshop this morning.
Oh, cool.
AI for podcasting, but it really, Deidre, who is one of the co-founders of Castro, who the other co-founder, Bona, was our speaker last month, came and kind of did a demo. It was a little glitchy because her where she was in Texas was storming, and so her Wi-Fi kept cutting out. But that's what I use, and what I love about Castro is it's not ChatGPT and then it's pulling info from the whole internet. It's only using what audio and or video you upload to create the other pieces of content. So I love that. It was built, they started Castro because they had a podcast and needed better show notes, and now it creates 10 other things for you. So I highly recommend that. And if you weren't able to make the workshop, let me know. I will send you the recording from that, and I'm happy to do another one. But I think it's great to show all options because I use ChatGPT every day too. It's like hey, I want to say this. How can I say it? Or, hey, I want to do this. I love ChatGPT. He's my little buddy. But it does make a difference for podcasting. Like if I can push a button and get a starting point for titles, description, blog post, emails, like that's huge, because I started when you had to pay hundreds of dollars just to get a transcript, let alone all these other things it creates. And the great thing about AI with podcasting, it's pulling it from your content. You're not creating something else. You're using what you already have. So I highly recommend that too. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Everybody else, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and if you are somebody who uses ChatGPT, you can have it learn you and your tone and the audience that you're going. So I have all of that already in there, and then plop the transcript in and say, okay, based on my audience and all these different prompts, help me with this. And I
will say that is one of the things I love about Castro. They have what they call a persona that is basically you teaching them who you are, what you do, who you're talking to. And so what's great for me is I have two personas. I have Julie, who's the pet mom and podcaster, and Julie, who's the coach and podcasting podcaster. So, you know, there's so many ways we can use AI. I always tell podcasters, start where you are, start with what you already have, you already pay for, and use it to the fullest before you add the next thing. Because trust me, there's always a shiny new thing. Podcasting changes quickly and is always evolving. And so I'm always feeling like I'm catching up, but that's okay. You start where you are and grow from there, which I think both Corey and Amy talked about. That's what they've done. We get to grow, we get to learn as we do it, and then kind of evolve from there. Okay, any other questions or comments for anybody? Okay, I'm also going to drop in the chat, if you haven't heard, these networking events are always going to be free. This is a community I am not going to add a cost to, but I have created the next level of support. So my Podcast Your Story community membership opened this month. It is only $20 a month in honor of my 20th anniversary early this month. So wedding-wise, marriage-wise, I am a long game person. I'm still quite new in podcasting. So this is a space where I'm creating places for people to practice being interviewed, practice being the interviewer, to talk about storytelling and how to do it differently as a speaker, as a guest, as a podcast host, but also spaces to ask questions, to get more hands-on help within group coaching, all those things. I had an amazing community when I started. Amy, the other Amy was a part of that. And that community not only helped me at the moment, it kept me going. And those are people who are now lifelong friends that I get to see every year at PodFest, which is amazing. And so I want to create a similar community for all of you and anyone else that wants support in hosting, guesting, and speaking. So feel free to check that out. Let me know if you have questions. Feel free to share with friends. And also feel free to share this event. This networking community is just that. It's a space for people to come, grow, learn, and also meet each other. So feel free to join whenever you want and share it with your friends. Okay, any last words or comments to leave our fellow podcasters and guests with? Corey or Amy, would you like to share any last minute thing before we wrap up?
Go ahead, Susie. I think you have a question.
I just have a question. Will the recordings of these podcaster parties be in that membership? Good.
No? You'll have access to them there. Yes.
Yeah, in there.
I'm also creating a space for the last couple months where you'll have access. But so whether you are a networking person or join the community, these will be accessible to you. I don't have all the old ones up yet, but I will have older podcaster party events. I have the last 2 months are accessible right now. So when you get the recording for this, there'll be a link that if you want to look at any other party networking event recordings. So you don't have to join the paid to get these events recording. I guess that was your question.
That's very generous.
I may change my mind down the line.
I work it a little differently in my community. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I'm testing. I am a researcher at heart, which, not everybody is, but I love kind of putting things out there and seeing what people bite on. I may change it, but this community really is a community. I don't want to hold this information. I likely will add it to my podcast. So when we have speakers or panels like this, I'll probably be cutting these out and putting them as podcast episodes too, which helps me. So I have no problem sharing it with you guys though, because I want you guys to learn and be able to meet people that were maybe at an event you weren't at as well. Okay, Corey, you want to any last words or inspiring things to say to our networking group?
I think the biggest thing is believe in yourself. Know that you have a message to offer. If you have this burning desire to do a podcast, do it. I mean, I sat back for months and thought, who am I? Who am I to do a podcast? Who am I to do this? And I finally was like, why not? Worst thing can happen is nobody listens. And that clearly did not happen. So do it. Reach out to me if you have questions. I love to help people. My mission in life is to build other women up and my nonprofit, but to just really empower women to be the best versions of themselves. So don't hesitate to reach out. If I don't know the answer, I'll find somebody who does.
I love that. And that's what this community is all about. Thank you, Terry, for coming. What about you, Amy? Any last words to share?
Yeah, I would just say when in doubt, just do it. You know, I have recorded many episodes where I was hesitant, you know, how is it going to work out? Do I really want to have this person? Maybe there might be something from it. And, you know, the beauty to me of a podcast is it's not live. So you do the recording, and if it doesn't come out the way you want it, you can can it, you know, or you can take pieces of it and use it for something else. I mean, and some of the, you know, some of the best episodes that I have done have not been with high level people. As you know, I bring my best friends since I was in 7th grade on the show all the time, and people love those episodes. My local veterinarian with her squeaky little voice, that's one of the top, it's one of my top 5 episodes. And it's like, you know, it doesn't have to be a celebrity. It's about, you know, connecting with that audience and giving them information that either, you know, touches their heart, touches their mind, or both.
It's so true. I've learned so much that it's really about the story. It's really about sharing you and who you are and what you've experienced. And that's what people connect with. And that's what podcasting is all about. And yes, there are some live streaming ones, but I've also noticed sometimes people just take them down if they don't like it or don't think it was a good episode. That is the power we have to decide. And I have a couple I've never used because it just wasn't a great episode. I didn't feel a connection. I didn't feel like people would resonate with it. And that's okay. We have that ownership as hosts to have those decisions, but it's also something guests need to know that, you know, you are putting yourself out there, you are doing this, but you don't have any control over when it comes out or if it comes out, right? So there are pluses and minuses to both sides of the draw in podcasting, but I started messy. My first episode was me and my childhood friend talking about our pets. No editing, dogs barking, interruptions by her kids. And then I did it and people listened. So I learned and I grew and I expanded. But sometimes you have to just start one to see if people are listening, but also to see if you like it. Don't start a podcast if you don't even know if you enjoy it, right? So that's always something that I leave people with. So thank you, Corey. Thank you, Amy. I appreciate you both being here, being panelists, and opening up your journey and answering all the questions. Everyone else, thank you for spending time in my community. I appreciate you so much. And I hope to see you at an upcoming party in July. We're doing it early, the first week of July, because of so many vacations. So please come join us. We're going to be talking about podcasting and retreats, which is big. If you've noticed, if you watch any of the big podcasts, they're doing cruise retreats for their listeners. So just a thing, we're going to have Katerina Rando come and talk about how she does that and how you can learn from her and her podcast, which has over 150 episodes too. So thank you again for being here, and I hope to see you next time.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you for having me.
Yes,
Thank
thank you all
you.
for being here.
Thank you.